Welcome to Gleaning Mustard Seeds with Jerrie Barber. Mr. Barber is a preacher, a ventriloquist, a barefoot runner, and writes 2 blogs. When Jerrie communicates, he encourages people, try not to learn very much. Find a mustard seed. In the next few minutes, try not to learn very much. Look for something you can do to move a mountain, remove a stumbling block, or provide a stepping stone for yourself or someone else. And now, here's Jerrie with this week's mustard seed.
We're discussing today the 4th basic concept of family systems. If you haven't already heard the first, you might want to go back to episode 3 and listen to those. These basic concepts will be a foundation for many of the things we'll be saying later on. Basic concept number 4 of family systems, extended family field. The question is, were or are my relatives human? Much of our leadership is influenced by our family. If we learn more about our family, we can improve our effectiveness as a leader as we relate better to our family of origin. Although people aren't predetermined to follow their parents, they may be predisposed because of their environment and training. Leaders can improve their leadership by learning more about their extended family. Margaret Marcuson, in her book Leaders Who Last, said, "When we unconsciously act from our family script, our choices are limited. It tells us how to be angry, how to hide, or how to protect others. We learned our lines as soon as we learn to talk." This term, extended family field, refers to our family of origin, parents, brothers, sisters, plus other relatives, grandparents, aunts, uncles, cousins. Edwin Friedman describes the differences in the outlook of the individual model of groups and the family systems models. He wrote, "The thinking that surrounds the individual model tends to see the extended family field almost exclusively as a source of difficulties or pathology. The family becomes something to learn to deal with so that it won't get you. The model tends to focus on what is sick or weak in the family, what to avoid or keep at a distance. It therefore encourages individuals with problems to see their family of origin only as a source of their weakness and not as also a source of their strength. The family systems model enables individuals to seek relationships with their family of origin. The problem with parents, after all, is that they had parents. I heard a preacher counselor several years ago speaking on in-law relationships. He said, "The best way to get along with your in-laws is to move 600 miles away from them with 2 rivers and 1 bridge separating you." The problem with that is distance doesn't remove stuckness. You can be just as stuck 1,000 miles away or just as free living in the same household. It has to do with relationships and differentiation. The family systems approach recognizes most families and most human beings making up those families have both good and bad characteristics. This approach permits us to recognize both, to find and incorporate the strengths in the system. It's my observation that some people see their family members as more than or less than human. Those who see them as more than human, angels, do not recognize their bad faults. "My father would never have done anything wrong." Or, "My parents were perfect. I don't ever remember a mistake they made." Wow, they were more than human. Others had painful experiences in their family. "My mother was a devil. She was evil through and through." Those who see their family members as less than human, demons, want to separate from them and never have contact with them again. More than likely, our relatives were human. They had strengths and weaknesses. God has given us the freedom of choice to learn from and imitate the good and learn from and reject what is less than the best. We have choices of following strengths and weaknesses in our family. I like to look at Hebrews chapter 11, Remembering the Way That God Remembers. In this chapter, we have the heroes of faith. Questions. Was Noah included in Hebrews chapter 11 because of the great faith that he had to build a boat longer than a football field, or because he got drunk one time? Well, because he built the ark. But he did get drunk. Was Abraham included in Hebrews chapter 11 because he was willing to follow God wherever he led, or because he laughed at God and his promises and lied? Well, because he followed God and went wherever he led. But he did laugh at God and he did lie at least a couple of times. Was Moses in Hebrews chapter 11 because of his courageous leadership, or because he killed a man one time? Well, because of his leadership and his courage. But he did kill a man one time. Is Rahab listed for her respect to God or for her prostitution? Is Samson known for his sacrificial dedication at the end of his life or the many sins that he committed in the book of Judges? Is David in Hebrews chapter 11 because he was a man after God's own heart and he repented when he sinned, he continually searched for God, or because he committed adultery with Bathsheba and killed a man? The Holy Spirit in Hebrews chapter 11 focuses on the faith, not the disobedience. We are asked to imitate the faith, not the faithlessness. Individuals and families tend to do what families have always done. Well, that's the way the Jones family is. We've always had trouble with our temper. In Numbers 14:18, we read, "The Lord is long-suffering and abundant in mercy, forgiving iniquity and transgression, but he by no means clears the guilty, visiting the iniquity of the fathers on the children to the third and fourth generation." We are not held accountable for the sins of our fathers, but we may be influenced by their bad judgments. However, if we get to know our family better, we may be able to see the strengths and imitate them and release the weaknesses and not do them just because that's the way we've always done it. This long-range objective is a goal of family systems. Getting to know my family better and why they do the things they do has freed me to decide whether I want to do the things we've always done it, rebel and reverse everything, or consider the options and do what I think is best in each circumstance. I've used questions I read in the book Family Ties That Bind by Ronald Richardson to discuss with members of my family about our family rules, conscious and unconscious. Questions to learn more about your family. These are included in the show notes. It's been helpful to me to see that congregations also form a family system. The more I understand the congregation as a family system, I can be freer to do what God teaches me is best, not just repeat something because that's the way we've always done it, or reject it because that's the way we've always done it. I've been listening to the Non-Anxious Leader podcast by Jack Shatama for the past several months. He has 284 episodes. Most are from 10 to 21 minutes long. I find them helpful reminders of family systems principles. There's a link in the show notes to that. Question: were your parents human? What characteristics are you glad to imitate? What family rules in the home where you grew up are you changing in your present home? How are you learning your family story? My son and his wife gave me the book of myself, a do-it-yourself autobiography and 201 questions. I completed it over a period of years, made copies, and gave them to my children and grandchildren so they can better learn their family story. There's a link in the show notes for that book. Final question: were and are your relatives angels, demons, or humans?
Thank you for listening to Gleaning Mustard Seeds with Jerrie Barber. If you found a mustard seed, send a text or email with the link to a friend. This podcast was brought to you by Gail Barber's book, Fleecy Clouds, One Woman's Story of Surviving and Thriving After Childhood Abuse, by Gail Champion Barber and Alice Sullivan. Gail writes in the introduction to her book, "I hope you find a blessing in this book that will add to your life and you can share with others. A difficult beginning didn't ruin the remainder of my life, and it doesn't need to ruin yours either." You can order your book from Amazon. There is a link in the show notes. Thank you for listening. Jerry looks forward to next week as we continue to collect and plant mustard seeds.